him in and formalize his arrival.
All right. Good evening. Please raise your right hand. Do you, Michael RIZZIO, solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic?
Yes, I do.
That you will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California?
Yes, I do.
That you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion?
Yes.
And that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you're about to enter?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. RIZZIO, and welcome aboard. Next on the temporal agenda is the selection of chairman and vice chairman. And Gerald, if you would do the honors, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. This is the annual selection of chairman and vice chairman. It was on the last agenda. However, the commission wanted to wait until there was a full commission. With that being said, the first order of business is to open nominations and appoint a commissioner to serve as chairman for 2024. I'll entertain a motion.
I nominate Mr. Mitchell as chairman. Which Mitchell?
Which one?
This Mitchell. Kenneth. I'm sorry, Kenneth Mitchell.
Second.
There we have.
Okay, we have a motion.
Do we motion it or?
I can do it on my end. I will do a roll call vote. Commissioner Cross.
Here.
Commissioner Kenneth Mitchell.
Well, since this is a vote for chair, I think I can abstain from this vote, correct?
Sure.
Are we doing roll call?
Commissioner Martin Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Commissioner Lozano.
Here, yes.
And Commissioner RIZZIO.
Here.
Motion passes with one abstention by Commissioner Mitchell. At this time, I would like to open nominations and appoint a commissioner to serve as vice chairman for 2024.
Okay. I nominate Caden Cross.
Second.
Any other comments? We have the motion. We can get a vote, please.
Okay, I'm going to take a roll call vote again. Commissioner Cross, you can abstain if you want. Chairman Mitchell.
Yes.
Commissioner Martin Mitchell.
Yes.
Commissioner Lozano.
Yes.
And Commissioner RIZZIO.
Yes.
So the motion passes with one abstention by Vice Chair Cross. I turn it over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Gerald. I think at this point we are to take a short recess. We can reconvene at 10 after the hour, and we will proceed with business at that time.
Yes, and the purpose of the recess is just so we can switch, play musical chairs.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We're going to move ahead a little more quickly here. We got everyone seated at the proper place, I believe. It's 6:07 p.m. So at this time, if we could have one more roll call.
Commissioner Lozano?
Here.
Commissioner Martin Mitchell?
Here.
Commissioner RIZZIO?
Here.
Vice Chair Cross?
Here.
And Chairman Mitchell?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And in the tradition, the newest commissioner, if you would care to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner RIZZIO. RIZZIO?
RIZZIO.
RIZZIO, okay. I'll get it right eventually.
You got it right. You didn't say Rizzo or Rizzi.
It's important to get it right. Very well. Has everyone had a chance to peruse the agenda?
Yes.
All right. Have we all seen the agenda? I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
I move that we approve the agenda for February 8th, 2024.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All right. Is there any discussion about the agenda? If not, please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, perfect. Have we all had a chance to take a look at the minutes from the preceding meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
I motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, please vote.
Motion passes with one abstention by Commissioner RIZZIO.
Very well. We will move ahead to the public comments portion of the meeting. Do we have any speaker cards filled out?
No, we do not.
We do not. Okay, so we do not need to recite the admonition at this time. And since no one is voluntarily coming forward, we'll go ahead and close the public comments at this time. The next item on the agenda for the evening is a presentation by our Compliance Director, Christina Newsom, regarding the illegal dumping issue here in town. And I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Newsom.
Good evening, Commissioners. Here to provide a presentation on illegal dumping. As I understand it, the Commission wanted to kind of overview how code compliance is enforcing and sort of what we can do that may be more impactful in the future. So to provide a little bit of background, the city as well as the Code Compliance Division understands and recognizes that illegal dumping is a major issue in the city of Desert Hot Springs. We do have a bit more of a challenge here in this city as, you know, in comparison to other cities in the valley with respect that we have a lot more vacant property and undeveloped parcels. And so, you know, illegal dumping in our city is very impactful and it's a threat to the health and safety of the public. So in normal code enforcement matters, we go through a series of enforcement actions. Typically starts with either a notice of, just voluntary compliance or a courtesy notice of violation that leads down to a series of citations if we don't receive compliance. That fine schedule, typically for public nuisance violations, is as you see. First offense is $100, second offense is $250, and third offense is $500. The reason that illegal dumping is so unique is that in most cases, the violator is not the property owner. It is usually an independent party, right? And so when we talk about illegal dumping, it's very hard to enforce because if we haven't caught somebody illegally dumping in the act, then the only option that code enforcement has is to actually cite the property owner and require them to clean the site. Some of these sites have, tons, quite literally tons of waste, and you can imagine the costs that are related to that kind of cleanup, in addition to possibly citations, which seems very unfair. So in 2021, we established an administrative fine schedule specifically for illegal dumping, which is what you see before you, with a fine schedule that is much more severe. First offense is $1,000, second offense is $5,000, and the third and subsequent is $10,000. And that is if we catch somebody illegally dumping in the act, we cite them directly and not the property owner. So our local franchise hauler, Desert Valley Disposal, is a huge part of our illegal dumping sort of enforcement, if you will. Since 2016, the city of Desert Hot Springs has entered into an agreement annually with DVD to remove large household items dumped on sidewalks near vacant properties, parcels, or in the middle of the street. So in order for us to work in tandem as a daily activity of our code enforcement staff, in their normal course of duties, they drive around doing inspections and re-inspections. Every time they see any sort of illegal dumping on a sidewalk, in a vacant lot, in an alleyway, in an easement, they take a picture of it and they send it over to DVD. And every day we compile all of those pictures, all of those locations, send it over to DVD, and then they put it into a manifest so that that agreement requires them to pick that up on a daily basis. So in 2022 to 2023, we noticed an absolute increase, tons of hotspots throughout the city, mostly, very rural, kind of out of the way areas with large, like piles and piles and tons of illegal dumping, a lot of green waste that looks to be like commercial green waste that's been removed by a landscaper, or construction waste that's removed by a contractor. And so we made it a point to identify all of these hotspots where illegal dumping was going on, and we worked in tandem with the fire department, Riverside County Combustible Waste Task Force, as well as county code enforcement and environmental health. And we wanted to make sure that we weren't just kind of trying to go out and figure out how do we cite someone, right, for an instance of illegal dumping, but how we tackled it from all angles. And so the fire department responded to fires of combustible waste, and they created berms where possible so that people couldn't access those areas any longer. And then the city met with the Combustible Waste Task Force on a monthly basis, and we met internally on a weekly basis to discuss where any additional hotspots were, how we could combat. We also worked with the Public Works Department to put up barricades in almost every point of the city where you could access some sort of remote desert area to dump. We also put up massive no dumping signs that you may see from time to time. Those were all erected by the city. So in addition to that, our code compliance officers actually went out every single day around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, usually when the contractors get off. And they hung out in those really kind of like areas where people would dump regularly. And they sat and they waited and they watched. And we were able to successfully issue some citations to some major businesses and let them know that if they were caught again, we'd go as far as revoking their business licenses. So this is an example of a large-scale cleanup that Riverside County, Code Enforcement, Public Works, and the property owner all took part of. Out on 20th and Beacon, there were a series of fires, late 2022, early 2023. This cleanup, as you can imagine, took quite it was probably about 6 months to a year from start to finish. There were a lot of people living out in this area, a lot of construction waste, a lot of green waste, and this is the after. So, you know, we do spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort tackling illegal dumping, but it's something that just keeps happening, unfortunately. It takes a team, it takes, you know, the entire county to kind of come together and work in tandem to be able to continue to try and eradicate it, but it is an ongoing issue because we are presented with some unique challenges in the city of Desert Hot Springs. I would say that most of what this is in the residential areas is simply just lack of education. The residents and our property owners not understanding how to properly dispose of waste, especially hazardous waste, is a big thing. And so we always ask for the public's assistance and you as commissioners, your assistance in educating the public on how to properly dispose of waste and to always report illegal dumping as it's ongoing. So you can always call the non-emergency dispatch number and have somebody dispatch out immediately so that we can catch people in the act and we can issue citations. So I did give all the commissioners a packet with flyers. That information is with respect to how to properly dispose of residential waste and recycling materials as well as hazardous materials. Desert Valley Disposal also is always willing to come out and educate on how to properly dispose of any sort of materials, including organic waste, which is a big thing in the state of California right now. And yeah, that's kind of concludes my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Newsom. Questions for our Code Compliance Director?
I have a question. Is when you say that it becomes illegal and you do catch someone doing it, it becomes a police matter then? Are they like, it's illegal?
So yes, it can be. It can be a criminal sort of infraction, if you will. But most of the time it's an administrative citation.
Oh, okay. I don't even know where Beacon is. Where is Beacon?
So if you take Palm towards the freeway and right after the golf course, you'd take a right, go all the way down about a mile, take another right and go all the way back out there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite remote.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just one question. So there isn't currently any surveillance or security cameras around areas or dumping hotspots?
That's a great question. So this kind of is always presented as a question when we talk about illegal dumping. The issue with cameras is either one, they need Wi-Fi, and so in areas like this, obviously there's no Wi-Fi, or two, there's a more sophisticated technology that allows you to actually walk up to a camera of that sort of caliber and point your phone at it and it'll automatically download. Those cameras are very, very expensive. And if an agency buys them, it's usually one or two. And then they have to find a way to mount them in the middle of the desert. And then they have to find a way that once people realize that that's a hotspot, then they don't dump there anymore. So now we got to take down the mount and the camera and we got to move it to a new hotspot. So the city hasn't invested in any cameras yet, but it is a conversation that we're having.
Well, I enjoy the outskirts of the city because I like to take my Jeep out and clear my head during the day because I work with music all day. And I've seen a lot of dumps in the outskirts of the city, and it's been years, you know, and people have tried things and people have cleaned things up. And now you're saying that you have accountability for this dump, right? You caught people doing it?
We have some, yes.
Now, are these licensed businesses in the city of Desert Hot Springs?
Some are licensed here, some were licensed in other cities, and we called those cities and notified them.
So it looks like the cheaper way around, instead of buying cameras, is to make these people accountable and maybe implement some kind of system that requires them to have a logbook with the city, and when they when they do a job, make sure they get signed at the dump. Because I know I've had that happen in the past too. I pay people dump fees and they go dump in the desert.
Yeah, we most definitely do have those systems in place for most all of our landscapers as well as our contractors. So they do need to provide some sort of dump tickets. Where we see the majority of this happen are like independent contractors, people who go and do property maintenance and somebody's been evicted.
So unlicensed businesses.
Yes, yes, sir.
That's the hardest.
Yeah, and I know there's this sort of like, it's kind of a misconception of sorts where everybody always says, you know, we found all this stuff in the desert and there's somebody's mail in there, and if you could come and look at it, then you could cite them, and it's simply
It might be mine. I
untrue.
may have paid somebody to take it to the dump.
Yeah, exactly. And 9 times out of 10, that's the case. So unfortunately, we don't, we won't do that. If you do see somebody illegal dumping and you can safely get a picture, we encourage you to get a picture or video of a license plate, but don't approach them, and just kind of, you know, keep safety precautions in mind. Call non-emergency dispatch and we'll get somebody out there.
But another thing that works too is the citizen that's hiring the landscaper can make them accountable as well. You know, and I've done that. I mean, I've specifically told them, don't dump this in the desert. I'm paying you $100 dump fee.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where education for our residents really comes in, especially our property management companies and our residential rental properties. Those property owners are responsible for their tenants, their occupants. At the city level, the municipal level, anything that happens on your property is your violation. So even if your tenant is putting stuff at the curb, it's their responsibility to ensure that they understand the same rules of residential waste and recycling.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Interesting. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have one more question. You know, now when you drive through, say, Palm Drive and Dillon and whatever, there's a lot of food stands. Whatever, I don't know what we call them, and I'm sure that they have their permits and whatever. But what about all of their waste? Are you making sure that they take it as they go, or what? How do you clean that up? Because there's a lot. I see lots of people going, and if the food is good, but I'm just wondering that creates more of a problem as well.
So for permitted, and let me make the distinction, for permitted mobile food vendors, which are typically your food trucks, they are required to have recycling and trash receptacles on site, and they are required to keep that space clean. They're also required by the health department to dispose of any oil properly. It is the unpermitteds that we have the largest issue with. And so obviously the enforcement there is completely different. We actually shut those people down. But when, you know, for whatever reason, code enforcement isn't around or it's in a county area, they are responsible obviously for a lot of improper waste disposal, I'll call it.
It's interesting. Thank you.
And it's interesting you brought up the point about if it's your property, it's your problem. And I encountered that in hazardous materials response for my years in the fire service. People would react with surprise when they would receive a bill from the county for our response to investigate and mitigate hazardous materials that were left on their property, which is to ask you, do you experience any pushback from property owners? Because there's a lot of land, property owned in this town, that is not fenced off, that is not blocked off, and is vulnerable to instances of illegal dumping and even dumping hazardous wastes.
Yeah, I would say that probably the number one issue right now is the unhoused population sort of taking residency in the middle of the desert. And so we have quite a challenge with respect to dumping in that way or, you know, unfortunately, you know, other kinds of waste. And so, you know, the city tries to work with those property owners because it is a little bit unfair and unreasonable for us to think that they're going to conduct a large-scale cleanup that sometimes costs upwards of $10,000 when really this is no fault of their own. In those instances, we will work with them. We have a lot of property owners here of vacant parcels who've inherited parcels over the years from family members. They have no idea where these parcels are. They've never visited the city of Desert Hot Springs. And, you know, unfortunately, ignorance isn't really an excuse. And so for those people that say, I have never seen this parcel in 10 years, the violation stands and you need to get out here and you need to figure out a plan to clean it up. And, you know, we provide options for post and wire fencing and things like that. So yeah, your property, your responsibility, definitely. Obviously, there are instances where we understand that things might take a little longer. On 19th and Beacon, actually, that was the case on one of those lots, is that there was, you know, obviously dumping of green waste for years and years and years. property owner had no idea, and now he has a bill that's upwards of $100,000. But unfortunately, if you have a piece of property, you're paying the property taxes, you should come out and try to maintain it. You should understand what it looks like. And, you know, if you're not local, that's why we have property management companies to facilitate things like that.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. And speaking to the surveillance question in all of this, Mr. Cross, you once had a device in your possession that was loaned to you by a council member, and that was at one time proposed as a surveillance method.
Yeah, so Councilmember
hotspots.
Betts gave me a trail camera, and that's certainly an option. I'm also professionally an IT professional, so I work with cameras a lot, and I think we could do research and find more appropriate and cost-effective solutions like trail cameras.
Sure.
Cameras can be very cost-effective if we just find the right ones.
Okay,
So I definitely think that that's something that we should look into.
sure. We can,
And trail cameras are an option.
yeah, we can explore that, and I'm came into the understanding that the Desert Hot Springs Police Department is exploring a drone policy. And then we will soon be employing drone, unmanned aircraft in part of their law enforcement duties. And if it's possible to interface with them, and perhaps they can loan out a unmanned helicopter or two to survey some of these areas and maybe provide us with visual evidence of somebody in the act, which would make it easier for just about everybody
Yeah,
concerned.
we're all for exploring, you know, whatever options are available to us.
All right. Are there any further questions for? Thank you, Ms. Newsom. A very concise and
course.
easy to understand presentation, and these will find homes,
Thank
just
you.
like cats. They'll go all over the neighborhood. Very well. And I guess the next part of our meeting, we go back to Ms. Newsom for her Code Compliance Monthly Report.
It's actually going to be Officer Messer, and if I can just take this moment to announce that Officer Messer is now Code Compliance Supervisor Messer. Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations, Mr. Messer.
Thank you. Good evening, thank you guys. So for January 2024, Code Compliance received a total of 170 service requests. We did a total of 471 inspections. We issued 167 notices of violation. We issued 81 citations totaling $130,200. 31 shopping carts were removed from the public right-of-way, and 21 inspections were performed by the overnight STVR officers. Compliance Officer Chafin, she's our AVA officer. She came across a abandoned and wrecked vehicle on El Mirador. After several attempts to reach the registered owner, she eventually towed the vehicle herself. Compliance Officer Valdez closed a case for a vacant lot on Palm Drive. The lot had an illegal chain link fence erected around the property. A notice was issued and the property owner complied and removed the chain link fencing himself. Code Compliance also inspected a massage establishment under a massage establishment inspection on Palm Drive. We issued 2 citations. One massage therapist received a citation for no city issued business license, and the property owner was issued a citation for code violations within the business establishment and the unlicensed therapist. Compliance Officer Valdez received a request for service on Cabot Road and 15th. Upon initial inspection, Officer Valdez observed that there was an abandoned burnt vehicle left on the vacant lot along with trash, junk, and debris and combustible waste materials. A notice of violation was issued to the property owner. The property owner complied promptly and fixed all the violations. I've attached some photos on the back for you guys to review that case, and that'll close out my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions for the Code Compliance Director?
So I have one. So I believe it was actually my first meeting. There was that abandoned ranch that was destroyed. Also right near it, kind of near Indian Canyon, there's an abandoned gas station. Would that be within city limits?
No, so the south side of that street where the gas station's at, that's going to be county.
Okay, that makes sense then. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
It's just a basic question. Are there maps, I've tried to find one, which designate areas which are DHS and which are county? Because a lot of people, when they ask me, I have an idea where the county starts and begins, but it goes in and out. For example, where the Elks Club is, that's DHS, but right across the street, that's county. So do we have maps that we can refer people to when they have questions about whether this is city property or county property?
Yeah, so our boundary is a little wild. It goes all over the place. Across the street could be county, but this side of the street's going to be city. And it's like that throughout. We're surrounded by a lot of vacant desert, so you're going to find that. If you Google Desert Hot Springs, they're going to give you our city, and it's going to include our sphere of influence inside that map. So that's not going to give you an accurate representation, but what you can Google is just map my county, and that'll give you all the city limits for all the cities inside of our county.
Any further questions? Do you solicit volunteers to help? Well, first off, the first question I had, because you did mention that you had a burnt vehicle along with combustible materials and things. What do you have in the vein of personal protective equipment? Because some of those relics out there, it's, as described, can get pretty airy and can, if you get exposed to them, well, there could be consequences down the line. So, are you outfitted with PPE or you outfit yourself when you go out and do all these inspections?
Yeah, we have PPE, we have gloves, we have full Tyvek suits, we're outfitted like that. And as far as the people that are out there, like anybody that might get hostile with us, we do have OC spray and a baton, but our biggest tool is going to be our walkie. We have the handheld from PD, so we can contact them anytime we need them.
Okay, all right. And do you have disposal as to the volunteers that are occasionally gathered by a city council member to do the cleanups in certain areas?
I have not been approached by them.
You haven't been? Okay. We can definitely facilitate that. We can recommend to the council members, as long as it's safe, because we don't want lay people going in dangerous areas or dealing with people that they may not be able to physically handle. But if it's a large area and it's just basic general trash, Class A fuels or whatever that don't present a hazard at the time, it may help out to cover a large area with some more hands. So.
Yes, that's true. I would if they have any questions for me or if they want to meet me, they're more than welcome to send me an email or give me a phone call.
Oh, absolutely. And we can help with that. So we'll do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now batting would be the animal control monthly report from our animal control officer. Ms. Zamora?
Yes, sir. So if you notice, we've had 133 intakes for the month of January. That is consuming the dogs that we took over from Indian Canyon. So it's not just strays that we found off the street. We had 30 dogs that were returned to owner or pets. 13 were sent to rescue. We actually had 28 adoptions, and that includes both facilities. The numbers include both facilities. We had one go to CVAC, and that's a vite, so the finances go to the owner. 16 were taken to the hospital. We had 28 deceased, 0 passed away. We euthanized 6 due to medical issues, 25 licenses, 21 administrative cites, 28 warning citations, 269 calls for service, and we did have the Animal Action League bus in our parking lot that spayed 31 cats and dogs.
All right, thank you. Questions for animal control?
Thank you for giving an explanation when you started, because that was the first thing I noticed was the jump in numbers. Yeah. Thank you.
I guess I just figured it out. DOA means they were already passed.
Yes.
And then passed away, none.
That would be like if we had, elderlies in the shelter that,
Right.
pass away from medical
And in that
issues.
case, you do euthanize, if it was
Yes.
just,
Mhm.
oh. All right. That's a lot of calls. How many people receive calls? How many staff do you have?
Two, usually one on the weekend and two during the week.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. When you say both facilities,
Yes, sir.
and you're talking about the facility, not just the one at Hacienda, and where's the other one at, or
In North Indian Canyon.
North Indian Canyon? All right, okay. And the Animal Action League bus, I tried to utilize their service as a citizen, and they are not easy to get a hold of. You have to queue yourself up on a telephone, and hopefully you'll get recognized before they decide to close everything up.
Well, they're extremely busy because of the, one, the overpopulation, and because they're so low cost, everybody tries to get in with them.
Yes, they are very low cost. I was wondering if it would be prudent to, find some way to get them a second phone line, because they only have one phone line that you can call, and have it written off, because that's a great service. The next nearest vet that I, patronized for the animal that I had was about 4 times what they charge, the Animal Action League bus. So we're very grateful to have that service, a necessary service here in our city. Just, if we could get them a little easier to be contacted. So, thank you for that. Okay. No further questions for animal control. We will next speak with the fire department.
Good evening, Commissioners. Report for January, there was a total of 439 responses within the jurisdiction of Desert Hot Springs. A couple of the highlights, there was 346 medical emergencies, 348, 26 false alarms, 14 public service requests, 20 traffic collisions. Your average response time for the month of January was 5.20 minutes, outside of the standard that we're looking for. Your average response for a percentage of 0 to 5 minutes was 61.68. And then your mutual aid responses, so your jurisdiction response, a Desert Hot Springs resource responded outside of the jurisdiction 103 times. However, they received 283 responses into the jurisdiction. For significant incidents, we responded to a reported residential structure fire back on January 1st at 3:40 p.m. 911 reports advised a fire in an outbuilding in the alley. The first arriving engine company officer located and reported a small storage structure fully involved in flames, which had spread into several trees and bushes and was threatening additional structures. Firefighters were able to contain the building fire in trees and committed for several hours. On January 6th, the fire department resources were dispatched to report a commercial structure fire at 65,000 block of Two Bunch Palms in the city of Desert Hot Springs. First arriving engine company reported light smoke coming from a regulated marijuana grow building. And upon further investigation, they found a 20 by 40 foot grow room with the contents involved. Fire was quickly extinguished, and the fire department resources remained on scene for several hours for smoke removal. I am aware, I apologize for missing last month's meeting, but there was a request for the annual stats and not just the quarterly report. And so if that's okay with the commissioners, I can give you the annual stats for Desert Hot Springs and Engine 37.
If you have them.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
So specifically for Engine 37, last year in 2023, there was a total of 5,732 responses within the Desert Hot Springs jurisdiction. As expected, historically across the fire service in general, we're typically 86 to 90% of our business are medical emergencies, and the numbers for the year reflect that. So we had 4,470 requests for emergency medical services. 288 of those were traffic collisions, excuse me, 27 vehicle fires, 55 wildland fires, 142 requests for public service assists, Your response time average for the year was right at 5 minutes. You did have 48 times a fire resource was greater than 20 minutes to arrive on scene, 498 times greater than 10 minutes. And I apologize, I know the commission likes to have the statistics for engine 36 as well, but I'm looking at the report and the way that it was ran, it was not specific to just the jurisdiction of Desert Hot Springs, and so any information that I would provide on them would be inaccurate tonight. I apologize, I'll bring back the correct one at our next meeting. And that concludes the fire report, and happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the fire service?
Thank you. I think you guys are wonderful. I mean, you saved my life. And 348 medical calls, were they all heart attacks, or what are they? Everything, or?
It's a little bit of everything. The fire service has evolved into kind of the one-stop shop. So it could be cardiac, it could be strokes. I mean, we run calls all the way down to toe pain and finger pain. So
Really?
it's a wide gamut of emergency medical responses. When you look at even the information that's provided to you, it gets more complex when we get into dispatching. So we now have what we use, it's called EMD, or Emergency Medical Dispatch, where it's a series of questions and answers. And then depending on those answers, it spits out a determinant code, and that's how many resources we dispatch. We're now up to over 5,500 call types. And so when we look at specific to medical, that's just kind of the summed up. But it could be, abdominal pain, breathing problems, headache, stroke, cardiac arrest, chest pain. There is quite a large pool of data for call types.
That's amazing. So it goes through the regular dispatch here, and then?
It depends on how you call. So if you call from a landline, it goes to the Desert Hot Springs Police Dispatch. From there, they transfer it to the fire department. If you call via a cell phone, 99.9% of the time, that gets routed to CHP. Then CHP routes that over to the fire department, and that is how that process normally works.
Wow, it's very interesting. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for fire? Okay. Well, that being kind of my purview there, let's see. With regard to the fire in the marijuana facility, now we understand that marijuana is something that is consumed one way or another by people, and I know that when there's my own experience is when there's a fire in a restaurant, for example, the restaurant has to be shut down. Cal OSHA has to come in and do a kind of a post-fire inspection. Make sure products of combustion or anything like that doesn't get into the food products, doesn't get into the food preparation products or things of that nature. Does that occur here in California with a marijuana grow fire such as this?
Yes, there are regulations that require, so after a fire in a building type like that, so through building and safety, the fire marshal's office, that would be coordinated.
Okay. I understand probably Fed OSHA wouldn't get involved at this point because of the status of where marijuana stands on the federal level.
No, and even on the OSHA side, unless there was some sort of significant injury, it wouldn't trigger the OSHA part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I lost my thought there, but yeah.
Not a problem. There was, so we don't have the statistics for 36. Do we have an update, by the way, on the progress of both the squad and the Quint that are under construction?
I do. So the squad arrived. It is currently at the tool outfitter where they're putting the compartments, the brackets in there. We are working on acquiring the equipment that goes on it. The target date for putting that piece of equipment in service is still July 1st. We are going to meet that date, which will be a huge improvement to the men and women at Station 37. Again, 5,700 calls, what does that mean? So when you break down the math, that's 20 to 25 calls a day for the folks that are working a 72-hour shift at a minimum. Realistically, especially for our paramedics, they're working more 6 to 10, sometimes as long as 14. In the summer times, they'll work 21 days straight without a break. So having this additional resource is going to be just a game changer for them as far as splitting that call volume up. And then we're setting the appropriate resource. That's kind of the goal, is to send the closest, most appropriate resource to the call. And that gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility with redundant calls, but also, too, it frees up the fire engine for what it's really, what its purpose is to fight fire and get water on fires quickly.
Okay.
The truck, so Truck 98, Quint 98 as it's called, we were just notified this morning that they're ready for the midpoint inspection. So they're at least 50% of the way done. At that point, when we're looking at the midpoints, the torque box, the chassis and the structure, the engine will be installed, and then the rest of the components will come after that. And so we're still on track for a late summer delivery, assuming that there are no commodity restrictions and labor shortages, that type of things, which we have been experiencing across the entire industry. We are working on bids for other apparatus. If you were to purchase a truck today, you're looking at over 900 days of lead time for an apparatus. Same with our fire engines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do understand post-pandemic that I'm acquainted with a former captain of mine that was very interested in the apparatus end of things. And they were, the fire department that he works for, the one that I used to work for, they're looking at a 4-year delivery time from the determination of need to when the actually rolls up to the front door. So it's a different environment, and we understand you're trying your best to get this completed and to get the squad. Hearing that the squad's coming that soon is very exciting news. That's good news. I knew that there was a challenge in actually housing both the apparatus and the firefighters. Have we gotten to the solution and where it's going to respond from and where those firefighters are going to be stationed?
As far as the truck, if it gets here before the station is ready, is that the question? I understand that correctly?
Well, in first would be the squad, because we knew Station 37 is kind of cramped as it is, and create a quarters for 2 additional firefighters and apparatus space for an additional apparatus the way it's configured now. Do we anticipate any modifications to 37 if that's where the squad's going to be, or is there an alternative plan for it to respond from somewhere else?
Currently, there is not an alternative plan. If we were to move it somewhere else because of our dispatching by closest resource, it would put it out of position. So there may be a time where it is temporarily moved, but 37 it's going to be its location. Okay. I know that there are upgrades planned at the facility. Station 98, from my understanding, just went out to bid within the last week. And so that should be coming back where the city can then select a contractor and get that officially, the groundbreaking and moving along on the new fire station, which ultimately the staffing from the squad is roughly a third of the staffing that you're going to need on the truck. Mm-hmm. So, but to answer the question, yes, there are upgrades planned at the facility.
Okay. Well, I understand these are capital improvement projects. They cost a lot of money, and therefore we're going to make sure it's done correctly the first time. Because if we go back and make mistakes, it's going to cost even more money. So, thank you for that update. It was it's been on the tip of my tongue for a while to find out where we were going with both the squad, and that is good news. Thank you very much. Any other questions for fire? Okay. Next, we will move to the police department report.
Good evening, Commissioners. I apologize. You should have received an updated crime stat sheet. Had some computer issues, so I got you the updated sheet, but I did not get you. Lately, I've been giving you also the comparison from current year to last year, that same month, and I wasn't able to do that due to some technical difficulties with the computer, but I'll give you some quick crime stats. If you look down at the bottom, for basically what you have there is a Group A offenses for the month of January. There were 115. At the same time last year, January of 2023, there were 128, so a couple small decreases in there, but any decrease is good. The most significant ones really is in motor vehicle theft, where we had 17 this last January, and then January of last year we had 21. Otherwise, there were just some minor increases and decreases through those different offenses. For the patrol stats, pretty consistent with what we normally run. 3,562 calls for service, both calls for service and officer-initiated calls for the month of January. 1,263 traffic, business, and pedestrian checks. 92 arrests were made during the month, and 225 citations were issued during the month of January of this year. For the goings-on at the police department, staffing-wise, we did have an officer start the police academy last week. So that is officer number 30 for us. So current budgeted staffing is 33. Our next officer that's already scheduled to attend the October academy, that'll be officer number 32. And then we have about 3 people in backgrounds right now. So things are looking good at reaching that full staffing mark this year. So that's exciting. Let's see, we did reassign one of our officers, and we do now have a full-time homeless liaison officer. So he is working full-time strictly with the homeless community in conjunction with code compliance and county resources and the hub. So he is out there every single day just focusing on those the homeless community, getting them the resources to them and getting them to the hub and whatnot. So that's a good move for us. And then one last sad note, our citizens on patrol, our citizens volunteers that work with us, one of them passed away, unfortunately, a few weeks ago, Paul Bobeck, longtime member of our department as a volunteer. His service will be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. at St. Elizabeth of Hungary. And so I just wanted to take a moment to recognize him and the service that he provided to the department and the community and the city of Desert Hot Springs. And that completes my report.
Okay. Before I ask for questions for our law enforcement representatives, if we could observe a moment of silence for the past citizens on patrol, Mr. Bobeck, and condolences for his family. So a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Questions for the police department?
This is a silly question. I guess I've never noticed one of the crimes is fondling. What?
Normally that's something, a lot of it with underage too. It could be juveniles, and it's just touching inappropriate areas, and that's what that is.
Okay. Thank you. As usual, a great report. Thank you.
And I have to say the increase in patrol stops has been noticeable. Across the city, people are talking about it on Facebook. If you read a lot of Facebook posts, they will say that there are increased patrols on Palm, and I know at one time there was a patrol car on the corner of Pearson and Lower Morongo. So they are aware that they're being watched, so to speak, and that they're and I think it helps because, again, we all know that Palm is basically like a speedway in the morning and in the afternoon, because you have that long stretch where there are no lights and people just floor it in those places. So
yeah, we definitely, that area gets a lot of attention. We do have our full-time motorcycle officer. He's out of training and he's out on his own now, just out there doing traffic enforcement, traffic education So folks will definitely see that and notice that. But he does spend a lot of time on Palm because there is a lot of issues on Palm, and speeding is the main one.
You know, I have friends that live in Vista, Montana, and
Yes.
they complain all the time, you know, just trying to get out of their development. You know, trying to make that turn there is almost impossible sometimes.
Any other questions for the police chief?
Well, again, it's a compliment from 2001, when you had 10 officers, to now 34. We have up to 37 available.
We're budgeted for 33.
Oh.
33 officers and 3 community service officers. So, like I said, we're with the academy, the officer that's going to the academy in October, that's a 31, so a couple more spots there. And then our community service officers, we had 3, we have 2 right now. The one that's in the academy right now is one of our prior community service officers. So we've had good success at bringing folks on within the roles of community service officer. The one in October, you know, Stephanie still doesn't like it, but it's one of our animal control officers. So we've had great success in bringing folks on and getting a chance for them to get to know us and them, and then them us, and then moving them on into the sworn academy.
Thank you.
Very well. Are we still on track after we get to the budgeted 33 to look into adding that additional, I don't know, what we call it, a strike team or whatever?
Yeah, once we get, so we have the full-time homeless officer now, and kind of the vision is short answer is yes, because that will beef our patrol. Right now, we've been able to staff our patrol to 3 officers and a watch commander, a sergeant. So that one additional that we've been able to add to patrol has made a significant difference. Once we get to the full 33, the vision is that we will have a full-time special enforcement team, community outreach type team that will focus on homeless issues, quality of life issues, if there's some significant crime issues that are going on, series or something like that, that they can really dedicate to just that and not be driven by the radio, but be driven by focusing on that issue.
That's good news. That's really good news. I think there was a discussion, I don't know if you've heard of it. I don't know if Chief Henson has heard of it at all either. If you've heard of something called a National Night Out. And National Night Out has kind of a dual purpose. One purpose is for neighbors to get to know each other. We discussed this recently. And another was to develop a relationship with law enforcement. So there was a discussion between, myself and another person, and what we were talking about was what would be conceptually more advantageous or easy to implement for law enforcement would be a decentralized sort of approach to a national night out, where you have neighborhoods spread across the city, or a centralized where you could bring the police resources and interface with the citizens. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, so, and we would participate in National Night Out. COVID kind of set that aside, and it's been hard to kind of jumpstart again, but definitely, and I think this year we can definitely get one going. And what's easier is something like an open house, something at the police department or a community center or something like that. But for the size of our city, and our residents, to make it easy, one centralized location works best for us. Then if it's at the police department, we can have those resources, the motorcycles and the police cars and the different type of equipment that we have to put on display to show folks, give station tours, that type of thing. In the past, it's been something like that, some sort of little barbecue going on or something, but it is a chance for the police department, the community, just to get together, get to know each other a little bit more. And we're definitely looking at getting that started again.
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah, I'm the other person who he says.
Yeah, he's the other person.
I'm the other person. And I guess because, there are 2 models for National Night Out, and the other one is the decentralized. The way we did in Oakland was the decentralized model, because part of National Night Out is for neighbors to get to know neighbors. The centralized, is okay, but then you're not getting to know your neighbors. And that's part of the National Night Out, is to decrease, part of it is to decrease crime. Because if you get to know your neighbors and people who live in your neighborhood, you can do something like, what is called, watch, can't think of the name, like I'm having a senior moment right now. But, it's for neighbors to get to know neighbors. And that's part of the decentralized model is to make neighborhoods stronger. So, we live in an environment where many people don't know who live next door to them or barely know who lives next door to them. So it's, I'm open to both models, but I think part of it is to encourage neighbors to get to know neighbors on National Night Out.
Yeah, and if there's an interest in that, we will make that work, and we will spread out our resources, and we can have a couple of officers at each one. So definitely, as the word gets out and the dates are planned for that, I'm happy to put together anything on the police department side with either module.
Okay, I'll set up a meeting
good,
with,
yeah.
I'll set up a
Could you do
meeting, yeah, with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what we wanted to hear. Any other questions for PD? All right. Thank you for that. What we will do now, we'll move to the commissioner reports. What I'd like to do before we open it up is we have a new commissioner on board who was just sworn in today, and rather than ask him for a report, maybe he can report on who he is, his background, what drew him to the Public Safety Commission, and anything and everything we wanted to know about Mr. RIZZIO, but we're afraid to ask.
Well, thank you for asking. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Well, when I was a young man in my 20s, I worked for the San Bernardino County Fire Department. And I was also a journeyman electrician, and then I decided to go into the Navy. So I joined the Navy, and now I'm retired from the Navy as a Navy CB. And I kind of retired early because I got hurt, but you know how that goes.
Oh.
And I moved here 22 years ago to Desert Hot Springs because at that time I was in a wheelchair sustained from service-connected illness, from an injury, several injuries. And I came to Desert Hot Springs for the arid climate because it was close to LA, because the VA required me to go to UCLA every month because they put a morphine pump in me and I had to have it refilled, and it was 20 years of hell. But during that 20 years, I got around the city and I've observed, coming from Los Angeles and things being a little different, and then you come out here and then it's very different, in a community like this. And there's just a lot of problems that I've noticed through the years that, in my mind, I don't understand why they haven't been rectified in 20 years. So here I am. Maybe I'm trying to do my part now. I'm back and I'm healed and I'm on my feet and I'm out of the wheelchair and I'm thinking clearly. So I figured I would give it a try and see if I can do any good. And so far, the first night I like it. You guys are great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And just for edification, the Navy CB, the construction battalion,
Yes.
I think if that's what it is.
I was in 3 construction battalions
Okay.
in my time. It was 5 years apiece.
Really? Yeah. I've always been partial to the Navy.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
You got it.
Who would like to go next as far as commissioner reports?
Well, I've actually been out of commission for a couple of months, so I think I've asked all the things that I wanted to hear. And thank you for joining us, Mr. RIZZIO. And I was going to say Rizzo. I have some friends from Chicago where I grew
Yeah,
up.
but Rizzo's the rat, remember?
Yeah. No, he wasn't, actually. No. But thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
And congratulations to Kenneth Mitchell as chairman and Caden Cross as our new vice chairman. I just don't like this chair. But no, I'm much better, and thank
Good
you.
to see. Always glad to have you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd just like to say during the past month, I've been somewhat shadowing the president of the Coachella Valley Disaster Preparedness Network, attending her presentations and DHS. And surprisingly, we have quite a number of communities in DHS who are extremely well prepared for natural disaster, and moving forward, will be working closely with them so we can continue to prepare the city on a local level within communities for not when the big one happens. I mean, not if the big one happens, but when the big one happens, because as I keep saying, we have the San Andreas fault, but we also have smaller faults that actually run through the city as well. So.
Okay. Anyone else?
I do have a question about the CERT, the civilian emergency response teams.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard that mentioned yet, and I'm kind of curious as to why that isn't in place. They used to be.
Well, that's what we're trying to get restarted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Mr. Gross?
Okay, so before I start my commissioner report, I'm sure you would agree that now that we have a full commission, maybe on the next agenda we can establish subcommittees. So we could do one for National Night Out, for example, or illegal dumping. So probably have some ones that are permanent and then temporary ones on things that we're working on.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then, so now to start my commissioner report, I wanted to touch on a few things related to illegal dumping.
Please.
Furthermore, so related to surveillance, I know drones were mentioned. I don't think legally that would be an option. And of course, we want to all stop illegal dumping, but I don't think most of us would be comfortable with regular drone surveillance. But we could do trail cameras, but the issue I see with those is that in order for the cameras to be effective, they need to be regularly checked. In trail cameras, you would probably only check if an incident happened, which of course would be better than nothing. But I would like to research and look into that furthermore, and that's an area I have more expertise in. So maybe that's a subcommittee that we could establish. And then what I think would be a really good idea is if we were to do like incentive programs. So of course, we want people to report illegal dumping, and there's hefty fines for said dumping. So if we were to have some sort of financial incentive for citizens, if that leads to a successful fine, I think that could be very effective. These flyers are great, but one thing I noticed that was missing is we have a contract with Desert Valley Disposal in which we regularly do, or in which a single-family home can get 6 free bulky item pickups. So if we were to educate the public more on that and people could get their bulky items picked up regularly, we're already paying for that, so of course we want people to use it. So more education on that would be excellent. So more of these flyers, I think kind of public awareness is really important. So of course flyers are good. We could do like a every door direct mailing, or social media campaigns, or maybe work with local news organizations. I think all of that would be very beneficial. And then things that we're doing well currently, I think all the community cleanup events and school programs that we're doing are excellent. We need to keep doing those, and of course the signage is great, but I would like to see cameras in addition to that signage. So if people ignore them, we can do things about them. So what I would say is we establish a subcommittee and then iron out these details and some ideas that we may have, and then present it to the commission, and then move that to the city council.
Right, okay. All right. Sounds reasonable. I know that well, I don't know where the drone policy stands right now. I know that there was a draft. I don't know what the response was.
Yeah, so we have updated our drone policy. So just so you know, we've had drones for since about 2017 that we have used for search and rescue incidents, crime scene and traffic documentation, that type of thing. So as technology changes, drones is one of those things that police departments across the nation now, you're seeing them utilizing drones as a first responder. So actually utilizing those drones to respond to calls for service, get eyes in the sky, if you will, before officers get on scene, allowing officers to get real-time information on what's happening on the ground. So we've updated our policy. We do have a drone. The most significant things I can tell folks about the drones is we stay completely within the Fourth Amendment in search and seizure, in privacy acts. We don't do drones to do random surveillance. There is video recording capability with the drone that we have, and the policy for that is the same as our body-worn cameras, and the retention of those videos is the same as our body-worn cameras. So it's new for us. You have to be licensed by the FAA to operate a drone. We currently have 3 officers that have gone through that training and are authorized to operate a drone. So we will start now utilizing that for significant calls for service, something like something that's happening in progress, a burglary in progress or an assault in progress, something like that. We'll utilize, but we won't be using it to fly into people's backyards and try and looking in through their back windows or anything like that. Usually drones operate, the max height, I want to say it was 400 or 500 feet on that, and we operate them usually within that 300 to 400 feet range. But the drone we have, it has thermal capabilities, it has a loudspeaker which is quite loud. Even better than like the car. It has a siren on it. It has light. Like I said, it has the video capability. So we've used it for a few calls that it's been able to get up on scene and provide some real-time information to officers. There's no restricted airspace within the city of Desert Hot Springs, so there's no areas necessarily that we have to avoid in terms of airspace. So I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to be a good game changer for us. Size of our city, we don't have a helicopter, obviously. In the past, and we still do, we'll reach out to CHP and stuff like that to utilize our helicopter, CHP, Border Patrol. But the drone really provides that same type of resource that you would get from a helicopter.
Okay.
How big is the drone?
There are all different sizes, but our drone size, I'm trying to give you a reference off of, basically where the mic is on the podium there, that flat countertop spot, just a little bit smaller than that.
Really? And it has all those things up?
It does.
Sheesh.
And the bigger one, because the ones we've been using before we got this one were smaller ones. They're great, but with the wind we get out here, it severely affects the ability to be able to fly that. This bigger one can handle some of the wind that we get out here quite well.
And rain and things like that?
Yeah, we've had it up this week with the weather and doing some searches in the desert for folks and make sure they're okay, and it's done fine with the weather. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. No, don't apologize at all. You didn't do anything wrong. But the reason we bring that up, of course, is like we mentioned it earlier in the meeting, is that there may be some cross-pollination between what code compliance is trying to accomplish and what law enforcement's going to be doing with their drones. And certainly, as you mentioned, that some people may not be comfortable with drones flying overhead and checking hot spots and everything like that. Law enforcement is very well versed in what is permitted under the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of California. So when we pursue solutions for the illegal dumping, whether we use trail cameras or interface with their drones, they're a great resource to start off with to make sure that what we're doing is legal. Because they'll mention the old fruits of the poisonous tree that they tell you in PC 832, if any evidence that is illegally obtained cannot be used in court. So we want to make sure we're doing it. We have to always wear the white hat.
Yes.
But otherwise, everything that you said is well taken, so I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. I just figured that was something we of course would want to clarify. Didn't want to give anyone the wrong idea. And we all appreciate that we're not doing any random surveillance, and we very much value the Fourth Amendment.
Okay, Okay, great. Any other questions? No? Go ahead and activate your mic, please.
I have a question about the drones. Is there any other outside agencies that are able to fly through the city and do surveillance?
Typically, so we haven't encountered that. The helicopter has flown through the city here, and they may be working a case for another agency. Typically, if something like that happens, they notify us, just as if we were going into another city, working in an investigation, we would do a courtesy notice to that agency to let them know, hey, we're going to be in your city. Basically, this is what we're doing. We need your assistance, or we don't need your assistance.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, and then one more question. So I know you have a department drone policy. Are there policies or rules in regards to a citizen using a drone in a way that may be inappropriate?
Really, it falls within the same guidelines and following the Fourth Amendment. It's a little bit more difficult. If a citizen uses one and they're flying it over the park or something like that, completely legal, they're allowed to do that. Now, if they take that drone and they fly it into their neighbor's backyard and it's looking through windows, then you could be getting into a trespassing, peeping type criminal offense. And I don't know if there's been anything that's gone through the courts like that. So if it did happen, it may be something of the first of kind. And I'm sure we'll probably see it at some point and some more direction legislative-wide and through the courts as it becomes more and more used both by the public and public safety.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Of course, that's probably not something we're very likely to come into yet, but eventually, who knows?
It's an evolving science, like so much of what we've experienced in the last 20 years with smartphones and, internet access, social media, now drones. It's probably not going to slow down anytime soon. So, but thank you. And your comments regarding the establishment of subcommittees was a prescient one, as I actually had some subcommittees in mind. Commissioner Martin Mitchell has been in discussion with me about the disaster preparedness since he came on board. And now that he's been recruited by the Coachella Valley Disaster Preparedness Network, I would like Commissioner Martin Mitchell to head up the subcommittee on disaster preparedness here in Desert Hot Springs. And secondly to that, I would like to have Commissioner RIZZIO assist him. And the two of them would be the subcommittee as far as disaster preparedness is concerned. We did have questions from one of our council members. He was asking about equipment caches, the roles that the school would play, non-governmental agencies, and I think those questions were legitimate. And amongst the other duties that Commissioner Mitchell has volunteered for, it would get answered for those questions. And later on in the year, maybe get back with a report and see what we find. So we do that. I appreciate it. And with regards to not just what you mentioned with the illegal dumping, which I've gotten a lot of feedback on, it's a hot button issue here in town. But also, since you're a recent expatriate of Desert Hot Springs High School, and I'll get to that in a minute, there is a resource there, an untapped resource, I think, called the Desert Hot Springs High School Public Safety Academy. And I was introduced to them yesterday at the every 15 minutes presentation. And I would like you, in addition to your exploration of the illegal dumping issue, to be a liaison to that facility and those people. I'd like to get a tour for all of us commissioners, if it's permitted, if it doesn't violate the Brown Act. And I think the personnel there, I impressed upon them that I started my career as a volunteer. So if they were able to volunteer with some of the activities here in the city, that might be looked favorably upon by future employers, such as police chiefs and fire chiefs. So we might be able to tap them as a resource in different things as well. So those two issues, I'd like to have you be on the subcommittee for that. And Donna, who was so excellent helping me explore the expansion of the fire service, if she would assist you, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so you guys are the subcommittee on those issues. As far as what am I going to do? Sitting in the middle. The Coachella Valley Regional Public Safety Commission meetings is upcoming Monday, and it's going to be held at the Indio Police Department. And the reason they're moving that meeting is because they're going to have a walking tour of their under construction public safety campus. I'd very much like to attend that meeting and perhaps, copy what they're doing, or at least see what they're doing down there. And that's forthcoming. Let's see, what else was there? Put my glasses on. We talked about the drone policy. I did want to touch base with the subcommittee dealing with the Public Safety Commission. I believe that's council members Jan Pye and Gary Gardner. Because much of what we do up here is codified in the municipal code. The limits on our duties, what we can do, what we're supposed to be doing. Some of the intangibles aren't in there. I think that there are some rules and regulations that apply to city employees that also apply to us, but we don't know what they are. It's almost like driving down a street where there's no speed limit signs. And then all of a sudden you get pulled over and you say you're going too fast. We want to go ahead and head that off. So a little bit more direction and policies and procedures. Maybe they can go ahead and put something together.
Would that be the city attorney?
The city attorney would definitely be involved, because she tells us what we're able to do legally and not legally. But then there's things such as, can I show up in shorts and T-bar sandals to a meeting? Probably not an appropriate thing to do. But there's nobody that's come out and said, we don't want you showing up with a lampshade on your head or anything like that. We want you to be professional. Just a little bit more verbiage on the conduct and the duties that are not mentioned in the municipal code. And that's something we can hash out in the
Mr.
future.
Chair, if I may, so we do have a document called, that applies to both city council and commissions. It's meeting guidelines and procedures, but it includes other types of rules. I can send that to the commission if I haven't already.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I would appreciate that if that document does exist. And please make it available to all commissioners.
Sure.
And if we have to go further than that, beyond what that document says, then we'll take it up at that time. Okay. That's all I have presently. Is there anything else anyone would like to say for the good of the order? All right. As always, I'd like to thank the representatives of our municipal services for attending and divulging their reports and information. Thank you we can sleep at night because you guys are working hard, and we do appreciate it and we do recognize it. I believe, if I look at our calendar, our next scheduled meeting, the second Tuesday in March, somebody can feel free to, second Thursday in March. It looks like that would be the 14th. That would be our next scheduled meeting at 6 p.m. in these chambers. So watch a recording of this meeting and all meetings dating back to 2009, I believe, both of the Public Safety Commission, the Planning Commission, and the City Council. Please visit our website at cityofdhs.org. If there's nothing else, we stand adjourned. Thank you all and good night.